Welcome to another edition of Anglican Unscripted. This is episode 889. I'm Kevin Kallsen.
I'm George Conger. Today is November 8th, 2024.
Okay, you may notice we missed Tuesday. Tuesday was a big day here in America. We every once in a while, like 4 years, we elect a new president or keep the old president, and this time that happened on Tuesday. So we'll talk about that at the end of the program. But we still live in a basic state of chaos. I today, moments after I publish this episode, I have to run to the airport, pick up family, take them to the timeshare here in Orlando, and spend a wonderful week with family. And this is our time together. Yeah. But it's a bit of chaos doing what I do as a business owner and a ministry person and a publisher for Anglican Unscripted, to do all that in the amount of time that my wife wants it done. Right now, she's off camera doing this. So, we got, and George lives the same type of life. Is there chaos at the church today, George?
Kevin, I'm on the set of the film Night of the Living Dead. We have zombies, thousands of old lady zombies going through. Today is the greatest, most important festival in the life of the church. It's called Rummage Sale Day. So we got here at 7 for the start of the 7:30 rummage sale, and even when I got here at 7, there are lines forming up outside the church. And inside are the ECW. They're all running around with their heads cut off. I exaggerate. They're very calm, collected, except for the dozen who are running around with their head cut off.
Yeah. And
the doors open, and in come the plague of locusts, and the altars carried off. What are these pretty brass bowls and cups? Are these for sale? No, stay out of the sanctuary. Don't go to the vesting room. Just people try to take pictures off the wall, and we survived. And after about a half hour, the mobs leave. We're still here till like 5 or something. Or at this point, what's left is like a moose head missing one antler, and rather brown, ugly, and orange sheets from the 70s. All the good stuff's gone. But oh my God, Kevin, the stress of rummage sale day. It's bigger crowd than Christmas and Easter combined. But there you go.
Yeah. So you're having a church holiday. I'm having a family holiday. It comes with stress. And I think that's the way God intended it. So you're fully aware and paying attention to what's going on. And when the family leaves or the zombies leave, you can go, on to the news, George. So we got a packed list of stories, political and religious. And we finally have what I call an answer to prayer. And that's the Macon report has been released on the John Smythe incident that occurred in the Church of England. And it occurred further into South Africa, and I thought into Africa. And I thought we could talk about that because we've been begging for this report now for 6 years. It's finally here, and we need to talk about it because it has some big implications. And I don't want people to resign. I want people fired. Oh, should you resign? No, you should be fired. So let's talk about the report.
Macon report was an independent lessons learned report commissioned about 6 years ago, and it was due 5 years ago, into the actions of John Smythe. John Smythe was a lawyer, barrister, Queen's Counsel, who was intimately involved with the Ewan camp movement and with several young youth groups for conservative evangelicals. And in sum, over 5 decades, Smythe was a serial sexual abuser who molested and abused at least 115 young boys and young men in 3 countries: England, Zimbabwe, South Africa. In the early 80s, he was basically told to leave England and went to Zimbabwe, where he continued his activities, and then he moved to South Africa. And the issues that are learned is that important people in the church knew about this 30, 40 years ago. And it wasn't until 2013 that the Diocese of Ely safeguarding officer reported Smythe to the police. And the major issue is that from 2013 on, the Church of England at the highest level knew of Smythe's abuse, but did not refer it to the church, to the police, didn't tell the South African church, because Smythe, when he went down to Zimbabwe, then to South Africa, continued to do this stuff. And I'll quote, Smythe was the most prolific serial abuser to be associated with the Church of England. And tied to the cover-up with Smythe are at least 2 archbishops, several bishops, and many of the big names in the conservative evangelical movement. Justin Welby is named in this report, and he is specifically named as someone who failed to act. Welby appeared on Channel 4 News the other day, and he said he was sorry for not meeting the victims after the full horror, that's his quote, of their ordeal was revealed by Channel 4 in 2017. He didn't meet with them until 2020. Well, the thing is, Welby knew the full ordeal in 2013, but it took a news broadcast for Welby to do something. Welby also claimed he didn't know about the seriousness of the allegations that Smythe would savagely beat, boys and sexually abuse them. He didn't rape them, but, you don't have to be a rapist to be a sexual abuser.
Yeah,
He's a sexual, psychological, spiritual abuser. Welby told Channel 4 he would not resign. He said he had considered it, but was urged not to by senior leaders of the Church of England. Now here's the problem. The Macon report said that Welby was warned about John Smythe in 1981.
Well, that's hard to believe. I was just a wee boy back then. I would have been a victim. That's how young I was back in 1981. Wow.
Actually, you wouldn't have been a victim, because the only victims were boys who attended these elite private boarding schools, the elite of the elite, not just your sort of average good old country day school or good public school. You had to go to the top of the top of the top, and then be invited to participate in these evangelical camps, and then you were selected to be physically abused if you had no father figure. It's the usual abusers thing. They find vulnerable boys who are looking for masculine leadership and company, and then they go to town. So Welby, who in 1981 was just finished college and was living in Paris, and he was told by the chaplain at St. Michael's, which is the Church of England parish in Paris, beware of John Smythe. Welby had been a dormitory officer or a counselor as a teenager at these camps where these activities were going on, and it was stated that Welby knew about it because everybody sort of talked about it at night, about this pervert. Welby exchanged Christmas cards with Smythe up until the very end. And Welby said, well, just because he exchanged Christmas cards with Charles Manson and John Wayne Gacy and,
I'll give him that one. I don't monitor my Christmas gift card list that closely either. I think I even sent one to Obama once. It'll pass.
Okay. Here's a quote from the report. The Macon report said that it is unlikely that Justin Welby would have had no knowledge of the concerns regarding John Smythe in the 1980s in the UK. He may not have had known of the extreme seriousness of the abuse, but it is most probable that he would have had at least a level of knowledge that John Smythe was of some concern. So here's the issue. And the church, the official eyes sort of saw this in the early 80s when a young boy attempted suicide. Mm-hmm. And the rector of All Souls, Langham Place, John Stott's church, Stott wasn't involved, but John Stott's old church, counseled the boy And the evangelical leaders began to look into this, and Mark Rushton, who was the rector of the evangelical parish in Cambridge, found the report and basically said, found the evidence and talked to people and said, okay, Smythe is a pervert. We got to do something about it. Justin Welby actually lived with Rushton towards the end of his time at Cambridge, and, was privy to these investigations in the early 80s, before he was ordained, before he went into the oil industry, before any of this stuff took place. Well, when the Ruston report came out, basically Smythe was told, get out of town. And so he moved to Zimbabwe and practiced law there and set up boys' camps there. And he was funded. His camps in Zimbabwe were funded by English evangelicals, people who attended Holy Trinity Brompton, All Souls Langham Place, St. Helens Bishopgate, churches that are part of the central part of the Alliance, which is leading the charge against Welby right now on the sex stuff. Some of their individual leaders and lay leaders were helping Smythe. Okay, it gets even worse. I mentioned 2 archbishops. George Carey was warned about Smythe when George Carey was the principal of Trinity Theological College in Bristol, where Smythe was a day student. He wasn't an ordinand, he was just taking courses. Carey says he doesn't remember being told. Well, the Macon report basically has the correspondence, and it's pretty bad. A number of bishops, men who went on to become bishops, knew about this. In fact, the current Bishop of Guildford, when he was a young boy, was one of the victims of Smythe.
So was the Bishop Andy Lyon.
I didn't know that about Lyon.
Did he?
Well,
yeah, he took time off because of his involvement with this a couple years ago. If not, this won't end up. I'll slice this out. I'm going to edit. I'll double check before this gets live. Okay.
Now, the part of the report was a psychologist looked into this. Why did this take place? How could this have happened? And I'll give you a quote. The psychologist said the peculiar culture of English conservative evangelicalism facilitated the abuse. And I got to tell you, this culture is not evangelical. It's, for an American hearing this stuff, you've got to scratch your head and go, what? We have exclusive boarding schools. We have all the things the English have, but there's a twist to the religious culture here that is not Christian. It's really sick. And I'll read you the quote. There's an intrusive and intense one-to-one mentoring of young boys and young men in this culture, where there's a focus on personal sinfulness, producing a default sense of guilt, defectiveness, submission, and indebtedness to God. One of the things Smythe would do would be to question young boys about masturbation. And this was one of the worst possible sins you could do, and he would beat you if you had, confessed to doing masturbation. And I'm thinking, my God, stuff is sick. And it's all cloaked in the mantle of the church. I grew up in the conservative American evangelical world, and I got to tell you, what that meant was, manliness, sports, prayer, none of this personal one-on-one questioning me about did I had dirty thoughts or anything like that. That, I don't know whether this is something that is peculiarly English or peculiarly, whatever the word is, unique to a particular slice of English culture, but by God, these people have sex on the brain. And it's not really anything to do with religion. This is just weird stuff. So here we are. Where does it lie right now? Welby is under intense pressure to resign from within the Church of England, except for the people who were touched by this report. Welby said, well, my senior advisors and senior church leaders, people who were involved in the cover-up, are saying don't resign. Because if he goes, they go too. This is, Kevin, well, imagine any good old regular parish priest who's not part of the inner circle. If you had known about abuse for 40 years, and if you had known in detail for 10 years, and you didn't report anything to the police for 5 or 6 years until a TV show came out, my God, your head would be handed to you on a platter. You'd be driving a taxi. You wouldn't be a priest or a minister.
No, you'd still be jail. There's no driving taxi after that. I mean, but here's that reality. Okay, we have 115 victims. And their families are the victims. And the neighborhood is a victim. And it's a victim. The town that this happened in is a victim. And for a couple more generations, the church and the gospel in that area and everybody who knows this story is a victim of it. You've created a nuclear bomb in your destruction of the church by letting one little guy go unaccounted for. Good job.
This rises to the level of moral criminality of the Ted McCarrick Catholic abuse scandal in the Roman Catholic Church in the U.S. It's, in other words, the Catholic Church had to be purged itself of McCarrick and his acolytes, and it's still not clean from these people. They're still in positions of authority and power, and 2 or 3 of them are cardinals. But it has. I have people who attend this church solely because of their disgust. They're Roman Catholics, but they won't set foot in the Roman Catholic Church. They may not have been abused, but they're so ashamed of what their church has done. And reading this report, I don't see how some people can go back on Sunday and be part of this institution that chose evil over truth and righteousness. Now, I'm not saying every single parish is tainted. No, far from it. Just like only 1 or 2% of the Catholic clergy had these problems, but it poisoned it for 98% of the others. I mean, I remember a time when I was young when wearing my clergy collar in public, the Catholic type with the little narrow one, you got dirty looks. And that's when I deliberately would wear the wide one because people would know I'm not Catholic. It's that degree of emotional impact on the Christian community in England. And I can understand why Welby has tried to kick this until for 5 years it's late. Because this is devastating.
I hear the AC just came on. 1 second, I'm going to turn it off. 1 second. That's the worst part of wearing these types of sound deadening. I don't hear the outside thing until I go, wait a minute, it's still cold in this room. Oh, I forgot to turn off the AC. Oh, the viewers and listeners must be, Kevin, can't you hear that? No, I can't. It's gone now. And we joke about this. You were saying?
We joked a few months ago about Welby was given a knighthood by King Charles. For his services for the enthronement.
Yeah.
This is enough grounds right here for that to be yanked. I mean, for English people, this may not mean anything to Americans, but this is the Jimmy Savile crisis for the Church of England. Jimmy Savile was a very popular entertainer, tightly tied with everybody who was anybody.
Everybody, yes.
And he was a pervert and a serial abuser, and nobody did anything. And Savile, he had to be dead before any of this stuff came out. Smythe is dead, and it's all coming out. So, I don't want to compare numbers of victims because that's beside the point, but the intensity and the emotional power of this. Here's the thing. How can English evangelicals walk into another GAFCON or Global South meeting and expect to have any sense of moral integrity or importance or sense that listen to us because we're the knowledgeable ones?
Yeah.
They have not cleaned up their own house.
No.
And here's a shame of it is because, again, it's only that 1 or 2%. Not every English evangelical, far from it, is tainted. But this is going to stink and stick
for generations. It's horrible. How can we make this right? Well, nobody wants to resign, clearly, and we make this right by making a public campaign for Justin and those involved in this at all levels to be fired. You should not be working in ministry. We'll talk about what GAFCON said about Justin Welby in a minute, but you have no right to wear the collar and proclaim Christ when this is part of your history. You don't.
Helen Ann Hartley is the Bishop of Newcastle, Northern England. She is very liberal, very, very liberal. In fact, Newcastle, we just had a little article, they appointed their first LGBTQ RSTU VWXYZ chaplain for the diocese.
Uh-huh.
Helen Ann Hartley is the one who basically torpedoed John Santamo. Santamo, who took no action on one of the major abuse cases when under his authority, and he was 1 degree removed. It was Stephen Croft who didn't do anything, who nobody's touched him. Nope. But Santamo, who had oversight of Croft and knew about it but did nothing. Helen Ann Hartley was removed Santamo's permission to officiate. So in that sense, she laicized him, practically speaking. Something far less serious, far less in time, far fewer victims, and I don't want to make the number of victims the marker here, but Welby is far dirtier than Santamo in these areas, and he's going to get his knighthood yanked. He's going to be, in a just world, it's taken a hard left liberal to see justice done for Santamo. And who will give us justice against Johnson against Justin Welby?
No, that happens in the afterlife. So, we'll have to see. But please, letter writing campaign. Make sure your diocese and your province polls any ability for Justin Welby to serve the Eucharist there. Don't license him anywhere. It's time. We need to make this a very public accountability for an archbishop who dropped the ball and those around him. Sorry to have to put it that way, but that's what we do here in the program. So we did story number 1, story number 2. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Well,
yeah.
Well,
Welby says he's sorry. Yeah,
he's sorry, but again, I didn't know how serious. It was a lawyerly, evasive apology that contradicted some of the facts laid out in the Macon report. I didn't know anything until this. You knew 40 years earlier, Macon report says. I, should have done this after the TV show came out. You should have done this after you knew about the abuse 4 years before the TV show came out. So Justin Welby has issued the apology, but the various there's one coalition led whose spokesman is Andrew Greystone, who's basically saying, look, Welby's words are worthless. There's no action behind these words.
Mm-hmm.
These are written by a lawyer for a for a lawyerly way out. I'm sorry, it's just not good enough. Is the responses we're hearing? His words at this point are just not good enough. This will be taken up. There's a private member's motion in Parliament that is actually getting cross-party Labour and Conservatives saying we gotta, now's the time to get rid of the bishops in the House of Lords. This just feeds into it. I mean, this just, and people say, oh, well, we need the Church of England bishops to be our moral voice.
Oh, okay.
And it's like, jaw-dropping. You want Justin Welby to be your moral voice in the House of Lords? It's like, what's that guy? The new senator of California, Schiff, Adam
Schiff. Adam.
Adam Schiff. It's like saying, you want Adam Schiff to be your voice of morality in the Senate. I mean, come on now. I mean, let's just be as ridiculous as possible. So, what the defenders are saying, well, we need the bishops to be that voice of reason and morality. And then you look at Justin Welby.
Or any of the bishops. There are some pretty pitiful bishops in the bishops' lords, lords of bishops.
Yeah,
so.
and they're, one of the reports is saying, the Carolyn Boddington, who was the sort of the one up until recently who sort of ran the bishop's process, changed the whole way of doing it in the Church of England. It used to be you weren't supposed to actively campaign for being a bishop. It was supposed to be a surprise. Who, me? Oh, I'm so honored. Instead, she turned it into a management training thing. So people sort of said, yeah, I'd like to be considered to be a bishop. And they started picking bishops like they were middle managers at Tesco's or Woolworths or one of chain stores. So you're the regional manager for Harbor Freight Tools in Pennsylvania, And so what happened is the quality and caliber of the bishops of the Church of England, the vast majority of them are mediocre people. They're mediocre non-entities who back the team, who back the bit. Nobody's going to push Welby on this. And it's taken sort of people from outside the system, the Helen Ann Hartleys, I hate to say it, to bring justice. Where are the conservatives? Where are those who, well, it's early days yet. Maybe there will be a push, and we'll just have to wait and see. I don't want to condemn without knowledge.
No, but if we can be the spark that gets this ball rolling, it was serious in 1981. It's just as serious for the church today, November 8th, 2024.
And there are conservative bishops who have a heart for justice and truth. Philip North has made a great noise about reaching out to the people in the states, which are, the slums. It's not like there's nobody there who has a heart for justice and truth. But I wonder what they have hanging over these guys' heads sometimes to keep them in line.
So let's move on to our third story about Justin Welby. We mentioned last week that Justin Welby did an interview, the Telegraph or whatever, and he was once again asked, is gay sex, which is a man putting his genital into the anus of another man, is that sinful? And Justin Welby gave a very good political answer and tried to weasel himself out, but eventually said, no, it's not sinful. That's the old way we think. We need to adopt a new norm and a new understanding and, dare I say, a new doctrine for the church. And GAFCON, who I got to have lots of, what's the word we use, unofficial conversations with at the installation of Steve Wood last week, off the record, sir. They came back and said, what is going on over there? Have you lost your marbles? So GAFCON has rebuked him and condemned him and said the GAFCON Primates Council meeting. Let me read this correctly.
Primates
your
Council met after Wood's installation.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And they put out a statement about Welby, which unfortunately didn't say anything that they hadn't already said. Right. There's no. Well, at least the good news is they're not saying wait to the next meeting, and then
then you'll get it.
Justin Welby appeared on the podcast called "The Rest Is Politics."
That's it. Yeah.
It does tell you something that the news media, mainstream media, is dead. Where Donald Trump appearing on Joe Rogan, or with Tucker Carlson, or Kamala Harris with Charlemagne the God in the United States will get tens of millions of views. Mm-hmm. And the cable and the regular networks get, nobody cares the 90 seconds you have. Well, Welby did a long form interview on the Rest Is Politics podcast, and he made the statement that all sexual activity should be within a committed relationship, whether it's straight or gay. Mm-hmm. So gay sex is fine. And then Welby went on to say, most of the bishops agree with me, and Archbishop of York agrees with me, and blah, blah, blah. We talked about this last week. Well, the GAFCON primates basically they're at a place where it doesn't matter what they say. They know that. So if they're not going to waste their breath or use their moral capital by saying you must resign or you must do this or that, because Welby won't do it. He's made it remarkably clear that he doesn't give a damn what they have to say. So the GAFCON primates are sort of, I believe, this is my interpretation, are moving their focus away from battling Welby to saying what they believe and what is important to them, and basically saying, look, we're done with this guy. We're done with him.
I get that to a certain extent, but I remember the good old days when a letter would come out of a province of Africa condemning with the full force of all the angels of heaven what was happening here in the Episcopal Church, i.e. Gene Robinson. And it was a letter that was written, at a doctrinal level of theology and a lot of time put into it. I don't see a lot of time being put into this type of response to what's happening to the leader of the Anglican Communion. I would want something a little bit more succinct and letting people know that this destroys the gospel, that this is hurting the church, this is shaming Jesus Christ, and you can't just do this without being held accountable. Something just a little bit more stern. I get that, they understand. Clearly, everybody understands Justin Welby is a non-entity in the leadership of the Anglican Communion right now. However, that doesn't mean he can't be taken behind the shed and given a little spanking.
Well, it also speaks to the weaknesses within GAFCON and the Global South Alliance, and that they like to say that they don't like to say it, but they act as if they are a parallel communion province, but they have no infrastructure. And part of that is due to the jealousies within GAFCON. When Ben Kwashi was the general secretary of GAFCON, most of the important posts were staffed by Nigerians. And then Nigerians had other Nigerians do stuff. Now we have a Canadian based in Plano, Texas. Mm-hmm. And so the Nigerians are being switched out for other people. There's a jealousy here. So, for instance, what could they do? Well, we're having this Synod on Synodality in the Catholic world, and Justin Welby is sending the Bishop of Chichester to be the Anglican observer. Well, GAFCON should send their own observer, but they can't decide amongst themselves or trust among themselves. Well, is he going to be a Nigerian, or will he be from Sydney, or will he be, an American? Oh, we don't want Americans. In other words, there is no... The initial enthusiasm of what I call the Akinola Arambi years is gone.
I absolutely agree. I agree.
And instead, we just have a bunch of fish all swimming together in a school rather than a giant shark, which we had years ago. And because of that, there's no real threat to Welby, because he can always, and what he's been very successful at sort of, cutting out one or two at a time, promising somebody this, helping somebody with that. And he's been adept at doing that because he has the money and the institutional staff to sort of keep himself alive.
Well, but that's the biggest challenge here. GAFCON doesn't have that type of money, and GAFCON does not have that type of global influence. When there's a conflict going on in your province, hey, could I have the Archbishop come and visit us and offer some words of peace to a conflict here in Sudan? I promise not to be mean and talk about you in a GAFCON meeting again if you do that for a couple weeks. And that just doesn't, those, the money influence is probably still the biggest thing.
Yeah, and let's take small stuff, because there are individuals within the GAFCON Global South Alliance who can pull this off. Mm-hmm. For instance, if you sent Ray Sutton to go meet with Kirill of Patriarch of Moscow, you really could achieve something. I don't know what it would be, and
he's a guy.
But my point is, he is somebody who has the intellectual and moral heft and integrity to meet with Kirill one-on-one, mm-hmm. and find ways that we could sort of work together as Christian communions. But there's a strong reluctance to send an American out to do something. Because we're Catholic, charismatic, and evangelical, people like to say.
Yeah.
They don't play well together. They just don't. And maybe it's going to take another generation or two to build that esprit de corps, or build that sense of wider, fellowship. But I guess the money's not there to do these things.
It's money and it's personalities. Archbishop Foley certainly struggled with the Nigerians over some battles here over American and Nigerian churches. Stories we reported on for 10 years. The entire 10 years Archbishop Foley was running the show here. And a lot of that is personalities. And personalities based on culture. And that's one of the difficulties GAFCON has, being a player in this church world. But I still think the sail is on their sides, and they're sailing not into the wind anymore. We'll have to see what happens, but there's obviously struggles. George, let's finish up our program. We have one story that I'm going to move to the bottom here because it's the bigger story is obviously we have a new president-elect here in the United States of America. I'm not sure if anybody's heard of this guy. His name is Donald J. Trump, and he was reelected against Kamala Harris. I apologize. I didn't take time to...
No. You pronounce it the way Bruce Springsteen pronounces it.
Okay, all right. Good. I didn't think she would be elected, so I didn't take time to memorize her name. Now, we're going to step back and go, right now, half the country goes, what happened? What? He left office with 19%. He left office as a disgrace. He had his troops storm the state capitol. How could he come back and win? What? And I'm going to let you know what happened. It's your own damn fault. It is your own damn fault that Donald J. Trump was reelected. Do you know why? You deplatformed him. The worst part of Donald Trump was he would tell you what he thought all the time. At 10 p.m. every night, he would get out his little BlackBerry or phone, and he would go to Twitter, and he would unload and let you know what he thought. Some of his thoughts were mean, unkind. For some of you, scary. And then about 2 or 2:30, he would finally fall asleep with this finger still on the button. That's how we got coffee. And boom. And you said, That's horrible. He's hurting my feelings. You called up Jack Dorsey, who is the head of Twitter, and you said, you need to take this guy off. And you know what Jack did? He did. He deplatformed the worst part of Donald Trump. 4 years later, people don't remember the worst part of Donald Trump. They remember the good. They remember a good economy. They remember, the abortion battle finally being over. They remember just the good because he no longer goes back to Twitter and just downloads his thoughts. He still has those thoughts. And if you had never deplatformed him, he would still be doing that and probably would not have got reelected. But you provided such a contrast between Biden and Harris and Trump that the country here had no choice. That's my thoughts. It's your own damn fault. How about you, George?
I look at it from a different perspective.
Good.
I was never bothered by Donald Trump, and in fact, all of these alleged failings, so many of them are hoaxes.
Absolutely.
People's hoaxes to the suckers in the military. Almost all of these are hoaxes.
Well, not hoaxes. They're misquote. They're misquotes. Okay, or
well,
they're lies.
They're actually hoaxes and they're lies and
Yes.
they're this and that.
Okay.
I think it's a masculine feminine thing, to be perfectly honest.
Mm-hmm. I don't disagree.
Most men can work with people they can't stand. Because I may think you're a jackass or an idiot, but I can work with you. And I frankly don't care what you think but we have to get this project done. We have to install these pipes, or we have to write this report, or we have to do this or that. I don't care what my plumber thinks about certain issues. I care that he's a good plumber. And so the framing that I think I'll describe it as a framing. The framing that I come from is that your internal world is your own damn business. It's not my business. It's what you actually do and your competency that's important. And Trump was very competent at being president.
He kept his promises, unlike any politician I've ever seen.
And so his thoughts on this, that, the other, they're entertaining, they'd be upsetting, but they're beside the point. Mm-hmm. Because I have really maybe it's just my temperament or personality, but I just have very little sympathy for those people who say that, unless I like him as a person, I can forgive his, how should I put this? I just have very little sympathy for those who get all worked up about he's, he's going to do this or he's going to do that when he didn't do it the first term. And second, that people look at his character and worry about his character because, there was some, that's not who we're electing. We're not electing Mr. Rogers.
And he's held to a different standard than previous Democrat people with the same moral failings. Bill Clinton.
Okay. Let's move it. Pete Rose. Pete Rose is one of the greatest baseball players of all time. He drank. He died. He drank. He gambled. He had questionable things. But I would want Pete Rose on my team anytime when he was at his prime, with all his warts.
Yeah.
And that's just Pete Rose. Donald Trump may have a high degree of narcissism, but he couples that with a high degree of competency and empathy. I made a mistake in our conversation a few weeks ago. I said, watch out if you've been on Trump's attack list, because he'll hit you back. Well, when he's arguing with you, he fights hard and dirty sometimes. But Trump doesn't hold grudges. We had, Megyn Kelly, who commentator in the United States, news person, despised Donald Trump
Absolutely.
And then at the very last minute, she turned around and gave a speech that he's the greatest thing since West J.D. Vance,
Yeah.
when he was a senator, dumped on Donald Trump.
Nikki
And then
Haley.
in other words, but what does Trump do? He wins him over. And now J.D. Vance says, I just listened to the lies about Trump and didn't actually know the man. When Trump came into office, it's under Obama and under Clinton and under basically everybody, the president fires all the U.S. attorneys, 300 U.S. attorneys, puts his own people in. Trump didn't do that. Trump left a lot of people in place. People were saying when Trump was told in 2016, you got to fire James Comey the minute you walk in, the head of the FBI, because the guy's a snake. And Trump said, well, let's just see how he works out. Trump doesn't hold grudges. He looks to see if you can do your job. Now, this time around, he's a little bit wiser, and
Yes.
I think we will see house cleaning for people who stabbed him.
Because he's not a politician, he made some classic political mistakes. The classic ones are trusting your opposition. Okay, he trusted that people who were recommended to him for to have positions in the White House and in the government could be trusted, when some of them were there to act against him and sabotage what he was doing. And we saw that obviously with the FBI, we saw that with the CIA, we saw that with the Department of Justice especially. He was too trusting of individuals. I don't think he's going to make that mistake this time, because he is funding his own transition team, and that's a clever way to get out of that.
The other thing to keep in mind is that Trump is a very good negotiator. He makes good deals. He knows how to deal with people. Under Bush, Putin annexed Ossetia from Georgia. Under Obama, they annexed Crimea. Under Biden, the Donbass and a good chunk of Ukraine. Putin didn't do anything during Trump's tenure. Why? Because Trump basically, hit Putin hard, then negotiated with him, and then after the deal is done, didn't dump on Putin anymore to hold that deal in place. And you remember, Trump was nasty as you could be, the little rocket man. The Korean fellow, Kim Jong-un, and then he made a deal with Kim and basically said, look, cut it out. We'll do this, we'll do that, you do this, you do that. And after the deal was made, we had peace in the Korean Peninsula. And, where Trump basically says, yeah, I like the guy, we can make a deal.
And
so
here's
in other words, Trump, this is one of the most successful businessmen in the United States. You may dump on him for this and that. But
if you're
he
asking
knows how to do deals.
Yeah. If you're asking what type of deal he made with Kim Jong-un, he said you can basically go play your rockets over the sea, make a saber rattle all you want, but don't go this far. Yeah, you can say you're going to invade South Korea, do all you want to do, but let's limit your playtime. Okay, and that worked.
And see, the difference between, say, Trump is what they call a Jacksonian, meaning in your country, we're not going to get involved. But outside, so China, if you start picking on the Philippines or you send submarines around Australia,
Or
we'll
Taiwan.
basically tell you to knock it off, or to Taiwan. But we're not going to do regime change in Iraq or Afghanistan. We're not going to kick out the Taliban from Afghanistan. We're not going to let them do stuff in Pakistan or anywhere else. But Trump, has this. Here's the funniest thing: Trump will be the better ally for Europe than Harris would have been, because even though Trump dumps on the Germans and the French and now the Labor government, he will help them if they need it. but he's not going to get involved in trying to fix Britain's problems. He's going to say, Britain, you fix your own problems, which is very different from the way we've done it under the neoconservative worldview, which we had under the Bushes and under Obama and Biden.
Well,
Trump is very different.
Yeah, even Reagan wasn't about nation building. He was just about enforcement. Don't cross your border and pick on your neighbor. So we'll see. I am pleased with the result. I think the contrast between Harris and Trump, you as a reasoned person were left very little choice when you went into the ballot of who not to choose. I mean, that's and that's why here's the surprising statistic this morning was Gen Z males, voted for Trump in a larger proportion than any president in history. Okay, I didn't know that. What? Are you kidding me?
Trump improved his margins in I think every demographic.
Everything, gay, black, Latino, white college-educated women, no, but all the rest he did.
Actually,
fine.
White suburban women he got better.
Yes, I was thinking that the white college professor woman. Did he gonna get that one?
Here's the Trump won the majority of Latino or Hispanic men.
Yeah.
Trump won almost 25% of black men. Trump won 67% of Native American men. Whoa! I mean our little county here, we had 82% voter turnout, highest it's ever been. And it was, I think, 78 to 22.
Sumter was 78. Yeah, same here in Sumter County, just southeast of your county. Same statistics, 78% voted Trump. Crazy.
Now, we're a rural, older county, and Trump, invested in that vote. But Miami, for the first time since 1988, went Republican. And in fact, Miami elected a Republican sheriff, Republican tax. Miami, which is a predominantly Hispanic county, Miami-Dade County, that has, if you look at the map of Florida, the only counties that Biden won were Alachua, which is the University of Florida, Gainesville, the college kids, Broward County, and Palm Beach County. Trump and Orange County, Orlando.
Okay.
Trump won Miami and Tampa and Jacksonville, the major cities, which are predominant. Many of Trump won the majority of Muslims in Michigan. He did better among Jews than any Republican ever. How can a guy who gets the Amish to vote for him, gets the Muslims in Michigan to vote for him, gets the Jews in Miami to vote for him, be a racist or a bigot?
Well, and that's who he defeated the most. Yeah, he defeated Kamala Harris, but he really defeated mass media. Okay, the wall of bad stories, bad press about Donald Trump, Satan / Hitler. That wall is what he beat the most because people have stopped listening to that wall. The reason Twitter / X is now the number one news source in the world is because they don't have that wall there anymore. You're allowed to post stories like that, but you're also allowed to read other stories that have a contradicting view. Now, I'm going to introduce our audience to something called Straight Arrow News. It's a new website out there. No, they're not a sponsor, But they go in there and they'll post a story and they will tell you which news services are covering the story and which ones aren't. And you can kind of delve into how accurate that story is by who is covering it and who's not covering it. And they'll talk, like, here, I'm going to put this up. We got time. Hold on. I'm going to do one thing real quick here. I had to do counting down. Give me a second here, guys. I was not planning on doing this, but this has really saved my sanity in following news. And I think I will share it with you because I'm a nice guy, and I think I can do this rather quickly because I'm so IT smart, and I have finally woken up because the coffee has hit. So here we go. This is a straight arrow, unbiased, straight news. And what they do here is you look on the right-hand side, they'll tell you what major stories the left has not covered. You go down a little here, they'll tell you what stories the right has not covered. They'll give you just exactly an unbiased article of all these different things. They do have an opinion section. They do have commentary and stuff like that. But when you click on the opinion section, you can click, do you want a left opinion or a right opinion? It'll tell you up front what you're reading. And if you go through all the news and politics, you get the same thing. So you know if you're reading biased news or not. And they try to put each story up they write unbiased. And there's a little bias. I thought, they're going to be pro-Trump. They're not pro-Trump. They're kind of pro, we can make money doing it right. They want to be the one media out there that gets audience by trying to be the way the media used to be, unbiased. That's their shtick. Are the journalists here biased? Absolutely, but they try and write it out so they can make money. Okay, this is like any other periodical out there. They're trying to make money, but they're trying to do it by playing it straight. And they're gonna see if it works. Can we beat the New York Times by being unbiased or labeling our bias? We'll see. Yeah.
Well, the challenge for us, for you and me, and I'll just leave it there, is that our telling people that the presiding bishop of the Episcopal Church is one of the people who's shocked. He can't believe that this happened. Because everybody he knows, everybody he listens to, they all agree. Now, to tell him you're in a bubble, you're brainwashed, you need to get out more, that doesn't do anything. But basically, if we engage with people with love and kindness and allow them to find their way out of the false world in which they've created, that will sort of, I think, make this for a better country. Make for a better conversation. It's the desire right now, after all these years of being told that white men are bad, being straight is bad, all this and that, the desire is to rub it in that because these people thought they were the majority. They thought most people thought this way, and to lose so badly was a blowout. To lose so badly is very earth-shattering. Well, so how do you help? So how do you meet these people who some of them are really grieving? They really have deep emotional scars and wounds. And part of our job, I think, as Christians, is to love and lead by example and not rub it in or be treated the way we've been treated all these years.
No, absolutely. No, but the Bible says,
let's pass the collection plate. And,
do not reap coal. And, we're in that position where we have won the majority. And this isn't just a landslide wipeout. The Republicans have reclaimed the Senate. They have now overwhelmingly reclaimed the Congress. They own most of the governorships. The mayors, on the coattails of the despicable Donald Trump, a lot of people are now employed who are Republicans. And the content and house sales that are going to be going on in Washington, D.C., just north of here, I may get to pick up a deal. If you worked in the machine for the last many years, you have to sell your house, move on, find another job. And this is something that happens mostly every 8 years, sometimes every 4 years. So it's crazy. All right, that's enough. I got to get going, pick up the kids at the airport, have a fun weekend. George, yeah, go pick up after the rummage sale. It'll be fun. I'm Kevin Kallsen.
And I'm George Conger, and you've been watching episode 889 of Anglican Unscripted.